All right, so demographics of a population, density and distribution. Population density is going to be the number of individuals per unit area. This is helpful, but basing ecological models solely on population density can be misleading. This can make it seem as if the individuals are distributed evenly throughout an area, but this is often not the case. So for example, the population density for the United States is 86.8 persons per square mile. Now, this is obviously grossly inaccurate for large cities or for rural farming communities. So basing ecological studies and predictions on population density alone can be very misleading unless we're talking about very specific areas. What is more helpful is going to be population distribution, and that's going to be the pattern of dispersal of individuals across a given area. Resources are non-living or abiotic components of the environment that support the living organisms. So just take a moment, write down what are some important biotic resources and some important abiotic resources. So living and non-living resources for a particular environment. There are going to be things that affect population distribution and density, things like limiting factors. Limiting factors are environmental aspects that determine where an organism lives. Trout live in cool mountain streams where oxygen content is high. Carp, on the other hand, can tolerate a lower oxygen concentration. So, because they don't have such high oxygen requirements, they live in warmer waters that tend to be muddier and murkier and easier to hide in. So these are going to determine where organisms can live. Patterns of distribution. There are 3 patterns of distribution that are most often used to describe the distribution of species across its full range. Range is just the portion of the globe where that species is found, and oftentimes this is going to be determined by the availability of resources. So distribution patterns can be flexible. What we're going to see is that those patterns can be clumped, where we see large sort of clusters of populations together. They can be randomly spread out, or they can be uniform. And what we'll see is that usually over time, we'll start off with clumps where populations are typically pretty young. We tend to see lots of seeds dropped all at once in a given area. But over time, we might see more uniform distribution. Plants generally require a certain amount of square footage in order to survive and thrive, and we'll tend to see competition is going to mean that really only one mature individual can survive in a given amount of area in a given amount of time, and they're going to take up all of the space around them. This is going to lead to an ultimately more uniform distribution of the individuals.